All right. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Eastern Current. We got a great show lined up tonight. Another Weekend Warrior episode with a new friend, I would say, someone that I got to fish with, I think 2 weeks ago, and do a little albacore fishing. But before I introduce him, we're going to do a little bit of pre-show stuff. I'm not going to go super in depth here, though. If you do really love this podcast and want to help support us at a financial level, you can check out our Patreon page. It'll be linked in the show notes here on the podcast platforms as well as in YouTube. So check that out, and that would be awesome. The other thing is we have a private Facebook group for listeners, so you can hop on there, share posts, share catches, ask questions, and hopefully find other anglers that you can get out on the water with and enjoy some fishing together. So enough of me talking. We'll introduce our guest here. His name is Wade, and he is a killer kayak angler from North Carolina, north of Wilmington, but I would still say, overall kind of Topsail Beach, Wilmington area. But what's going on, Wade?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good, man. I hate that you gotta make everybody so jealous with your view from your camera out your back door right into the creek that you catch redfish in and trout.
Yeah, it was hard not to set it up right here and just off a little bit. So I won't blur out the edges or anything. This is where I fish. So here you go.
I'm gonna triangulate that with a tree across the creek and off the exact spot.
Goodbye.
Well, cool, man. I was saying, Wade hit me up on Instagram, and we went and did a little albacore fishing with the guy Roger, who we just had on the show, who was actually one of my father-in-law's longtime friends, but another kayak angler. And I've really enjoyed these kayak episodes. I've got another one that I'm recording tomorrow night with a guy he's a Hobie pro down in Clearwater, Florida, I think.
Yep.
And he's does a bunch of tarpon fishing and stuff, and I was like, man, that's a cool one. Tarpon on a kayak is pretty crazy. But every time I do a kayak episode, I'm like, I want a kayak. I really want a kayak, just because the way it makes you fish, man. It really slows you down and makes you learn the water that you're picking apart. But let's kind of hear your backstory. You came from a very fishy area to probably a less fishy area. So if you ever do go back, you're going to have an upper hand. But tell everyone your story, kind of how you got into fishing and everything.
Yeah. So grew up in South Texas, actually. I don't know if some of your listeners probably from the area too. Corpus Christi, Baffin Bay area. Didn't really quite take advantage of the area as much as I did. I did a bunch of shore, bottom fishing whenever I was there. Go out on the weekend, something like that.
Yeah.
Really looking back, wish I had everything that I have now and had really taken advantage of it. But grew up there, saltwater, freshwater fished, and then came up to North Carolina 3 years ago, and did kind of lost fishing back in college for a little while. Didn't really do much of any of it at all. Came up here and decided to buy some fishing rods on Craigslist and met Roger, who you just talked about, actually. Talked to him about 30 minutes the day that I bought 2 fishing rods from him, and just kind of grew from there. He really kind of introduced me back into North Carolina saltwater fishing, and haven't gone back from there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, Roger's a good dude. He's got that passion and also that just desire to teach and to learn as well, which I think is important. And just a really good guy who wants to see everybody out there enjoying fishing, which is how I feel as well. And I don't get a lot of hate, but I get some people that are like, why the heck are you talking so much about how to go catch fish? You're a fishing guide. And, none of this is stuff that you can't go into a tackle shop and ask, and it's not like we're sitting here dropping GPS coordinates and whatnot. I think I've said this on multiple podcasts, but it's the more productive inshore anglers we have here in North Carolina, the louder the voice for conservation, because they're the people that are going to really get a heart for the fish and really want to see conservation efforts really take place and take root here in North Carolina. So that's kind of my argument when anybody, and that usually shuts people up when they start giving me crap about it.
I totally agree with that. I have become more and more so over the past year, more conscious of it, and just because I've picked up my fishing, probably twice as much as I did the year before, and it's just mattered that much more just seeing the differences already in just the 2 to 3 years that I've been here.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all, when I reached out to Wade about doing the podcast, he said, man, I don't feel worthy to do the podcast. I haven't been fishing that long, and I was talking about, how he's productive. And the big thing how did you word it again? What did you say exactly? It was
0% tactics, 100% perseverance.
Yes, that's what it is. So I think that is a huge motivator. It should be a huge motivator for those of you out there that are struggling. And the tactics are important, but put tactics aside. If you just go out and fish hard every chance you get, you're going to be able to start piecing things together. This podcast and these tips we're going to give you today and other podcasts should help you. Let me split the screen here so that I'm just staring at you while, or you can do whatever while I'm talking. Should help you when you're on the water, but it really boils down to just being consistent and getting out there and going and struggling, and then slowly starting to put that piece of the puzzle together, just like an actual puzzle. The more pieces you begin to get together, the faster it comes together. So the first couple pieces are always the toughest, unless they're the edges of the puzzle, but that doesn't really make sense for fishing. But the first couple of pieces of the puzzle are the hardest to find and find their place. But once they're there, it starts to flow much more naturally. That's kind of what I took from that. But how have you seen that play out in your fishing here in North Carolina?
So especially with being on a kayak, I really just enjoy being outside, so it makes it easy. Yeah. I'll say fishing or catching fish is a plus. So if I go out there and spend 5 to 8 hours on the kayak, I have no problem with that. And if you can see a full tide cycle, going somewhere at low tide, see it all the way through, see that you're not catching anything at dead high, and then coming back through and catching fish once again coming out, whatever that looks like. Just spending time on the water, you can fish one spot and then you can come back at a different time on a different moon cycle, whatever it might be. I guess I've learned some tactics and realized I didn't know them until I have heard them, say so on this podcast or, read something online, it's just, something you didn't know about, but that you've sat out there and seen and, subconsciously realized that. And then, hey, that's actually a thing when you come back and hear, somebody's talking about it on here, like, moon cycles matter.
Definitely.
Like that. So just time out there and just, you can go back to the same spot more than once and, see at those different times and, catch different fish at different periods of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's huge. And it's kind of humbling sometimes when you feel like, and it happens to me a lot, where I'm like, dang, I feel like I just figured out like a little secret, a little niche, like, and then you listen to something or you hear somebody else like talking about the same thing. You're like, it's encouraging that it is a thing, but at the same time, it's like, all right, there goes the upper hand I thought I had,
Yep. Yep.
So it's definitely, there's people that have done this long before Wade and I, and there's people that are going to do it after us that are going to be better than both of us. And so just learning and adapting and spending that time kind of grinding out the tougher hours are when you really put some stuff together. So I think that's huge. Well, let's talk a little bit about your style of fishing. So you fish from a kayak, but let's first off talk about your kayak. So what kind of kayak do you have?
I have the Hobie Outback.
The Hobie Outback. So is that
2018?
2018.
What's that?
I'm not super familiar with like the models. I know it's Hobie,
yep.
And so break that down a little bit and what that boat's kind of built for.
It's kind of like their mid-size, I guess.
Okay.
You got the Pro Angler, which is the large, almost boat-like kayak, and then you have the Outback, and I believe they have one or two below that are maybe the Compass or something like that. So it's kind of the middle of the line. For me, I looked at pretty much everything when I was looking at them, but it kind of just reading from forums and everything else. It's the versatility of it. I fish inshore, I fish lakes, and I've gone offshore in it too, and I've never had a single issue with it, and I wouldn't go back to it for one of the kayaks. So if you want to, sit on a flat surface and not go anywhere or not have any sort of, wave action or anything like that, the Pro Angler might be great, but, as much as I like to get out and just do different things, the Outback has just been like the all-in-one kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely right down the middle. I didn't even realize how, many different models of kayaks there were and how some sucked for some things. And, I was just like, but that was so ignorant of me because it's like, just like a boat, like certain tiny little changes in the hull of a boat can help it and hurt it in like so many different ways. So why would that not happen with a kayak? I guess I was thinking, it's a speed thing, but even with pulling a skiff, like there's certain little things that you put into a skiff that help it pull quietly, that help it pull smoothly and all that, and not dragging the wind too much, and kind of the same deal with a kayak. So would you say that one does pretty well in wind? Because that's one of the big things I hear about is like, about some of the Hobies is the higher sides, maybe sometimes they blow around in the wind a little bit more.
So I don't know if I'd say it does great in the wind, but
Yeah.
the Hobie style of paddling, like, it doesn't really matter at that point.
Gotcha.
You're gonna feel it. You're gonna get blown, but you can paddle. Like, I can stay and I can have current and wind going, and pretty much stay in one place with my fins. You know,
Yeah.
You're gonna get blown, but you can handle it with it.
Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to. You get the turbo fins and a rudder, and it doesn't really matter too much. You're gonna work a little bit more, but you're fine.
Heck yeah. So a lot of the kayaks, and this is my question. So the first, they kind of came out with the props, and the props are not quite as good as the fins, correct, on the kayak?
I haven't actually used a prop kayak, but I have seen people go by in them and look very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just the leg position and then the motion, it doesn't quite look like a bike. You know, like you're saying bike motion, but it doesn't quite look like a bike. I don't know why. It just looks like it's shoving your knees up into you or something like that. The Hobie fins are basically effortless. I could sit there and go around at 3 miles an hour, all day, and then come back and not feel it. If you want to go 4 to 5 miles an hour, you could probably do it for a little bit, but you're going to feel it. But I can cruise at 3 all day, and just the motion, however they did it with the fins, is just great.
That's cool.
You feel it.
That's super cool. Yeah, I fished out of Old Town with a prop, and felt fine all day. I mean, I get uncomfortable sitting, so I was uncomfortable. But it was nothing different than if I was sitting in a car.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to stand up after fishing. I stood up and peed a couple times, but as soon as I stood up and tried to walk around, it was my back was killing me, and it was a very comfortable kayak to sit in. But I think it was the pedals and the circular motion you're making to pedal drive. And I mean, it moved great. It was quick, but man, my back was killing me for like 2 days.
Yeah, I think it seems almost with these that, like, if you want to, you can use from the knees down, and you're not really exerting leg energy. You can just kind of move your feet and just go there. One thing, real quick, just hit off there. You
Definitely.
talked about standing up a couple times.
Yeah.
You have the different models too, and the Pro Angler, you're kind of sitting on like almost boat. Like, I don't think anybody would really have a problem standing up in one. I can stand up in mine relatively comfortably. I don't do it very often, but I can do it. And if I want to sight fish a little bit, I can stand up in this one relatively easily and do that, which is a big plus for having
Definitely.
The movement ability and being able to stand up on it with the stability.
So do you bring anything extra with you to move around when you're trying to stand up and sight fish, or are you kind of poling with your paddle or paddling standing up? How do you do that?
It's either placement of current. So I've got the rudder, so I can either stand up and just reach down every now and then, turn the rudder just enough to float with the current, so I'll go up and then come back down where I want to fish.
Gotcha.
Or if I'm trying to move around just a little bit, I'll usually just pick up my paddle and kind of paddleboard it just a little bit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work very well because they're so heavy and big. They are a lot to move, so it's really just trying to place and then come down with the current or wind, however that's planned.
That's what I figured is that drift, man. That's I do that in the boat a good bit too if it's really windy. And a skiff you can honestly pull into the wind pretty easily the way they're designed. And I feel like you probably could with a kayak as well if you had an actual push pull with some length to it.
If you were just trying to scout, I think so. Definitely not. Like, I've tried to fish and move at the same time, and that doesn't work.
Yeah,
for me.
that's very
maybe
true. Even
somebody
a
more
skiff
coordinated or athletic, but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, even a skiff, it's very hard to pull the boat and fish it, and fish as well. It's just, it doesn't work well. Especially when you're on the back, standing on the back, the bow's up, and it's scooting around a little bit. But, well, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of your what would be the word? Just your fishing here in general. So what is your main focus? I would say inshore. It sounds like when we've talked in the past, but redfish and trout mostly. Like, do you prefer to go red fishing? Let's talk a little bit about, like, if you've got a day on the water, what it looks like.
I think I'd probably say redfish.
Yeah.
Probably just because I catch more redfish. That might just be redfish or dumber or something. I don't know. They fall for it more. But I catch more redfish. I will try and go trout fishing and catch redfish. I don't know if maybe they've just outsmarted me. And then flounders just seem to kind of be a plus when I go. I can kind of target flounder if I want to.
Yeah.
Fish the bottom a little bit, but I'm all artificial too. So. Every now and then I'll throw out a piece of dead bait, but it's in the kayak. It's not very fun to do it. I'm just sitting there by yourself. So, So redfish are really what I'm going for if I'm going out for the most part.
Heck yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit then about your tactics from a kayak. So you're starting the day off. What do you have? Well, first off, let's talk about this. What do you bring on your kayak? Because you do have a limited amount of space, as a kayak angler. Yep. And so, what do you like to have on the boat with you when you go out to fish?
So 3 poles and a tackle box for the most part. I've got a soft ugly stick box that I bought right when I came over here, and it's got two bags or 2 boxes in there, 2 like Plano style boxes in there, and 3 poles, and that's pretty much it. I actually ran out of pole room in the Hobie, and I didn't want them sitting all in front of me. I actually made that. They have a thing, if you can Google it, whatever, called a rocket launcher, I believe.
Yeah.
And so actually what's sitting over there behind me, like I made it out of PVC, and I can stick 4 poles in it or 3 in a net, and it's all behind me. And it's actually, if you have a Hobie, you should make one.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Find somebody to buy you one. But yeah, no, it's really 3 poles and the tackle, whatever I'm looking for, taken out there that day.
Okay, it's crazy how many cool things you can make with PVC. Like that.
Yep, it is.
that looks so professional. I mean, it looks like something you get. I'm sure you could get it made out of aluminum too, but why not just do PVC? Yep. It's so much cheaper. But yeah, that's awesome, man. I think simplicity on any vessel is key. Like you load too much stuff on there, you try to do too much, and I don't know. I think it's a double-edged sword. It's nice to have a lot of tackle, but I mean, I keep so much tackle in my skiff, and all it does is just create a mess. But I don't want to be out there and not have what I need. But my hatches, like every 3 days, I've got to dig everything out of them and kind of reorganize my hatches because I'm not good at keeping them organized while I'm on the water. Is that something you see on the kayak, as the day goes on, or are you pretty good about keeping everything back in its spots? And
it gets tight. If I try and stuff too much stuff in the tackle box, really, it usually sits right in front of my legs, and if it gets too full of stuff that I'm trying to bring, it usually gets less and less comfortable.
Yeah.
One thing I will talk about, I have it set up for a fish finder GPS, which I've taken out, maybe the couple times I've gone offshore. I don't use it inshore at all. It's just like you got to put the battery in the back, you got to have it charged, you got to put that back on. And I just don't like using it in general inshore, even though I know I have done better when I've taken it. I've seen fish on it, and I've seen some structure when I've taken it out, but it's one of those, risk reward there of, do I want to carry this around and try and have to deal with it? I usually don't take it.
Right.
A lot of people do. So that's just one of the things there. Kind of going along the lines there, I actually just tried putting on a swivel for jig heads on, straight off my leader, 4-carbon leader the other day. And just for trying availability of changing out jig heads.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I like it or not. It looks ugly. And I don't know if I'm going to switch too often if it doesn't work. Can I switch them out quick enough to, a top water plug or something like that?
Right.
Probably. But should I just fish whatever I decide to fish there? I don't know. So it's something I don't know if you know there about it. It doesn't seem like people really use them around here.
No. It seems like, though, are you using a traditional snap swivel, or are you using the thing you see, like it's like a little, kind of looks like a paper clip that's made for, like, actually for swapping lures out?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
The second one.
The second one, okay. Yeah, I've seen that, man, and it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I always tie a uni knot, so at 3 turns and cinch it down. It's really quick. And I feel like I can tie a uni knot, maybe not as quick as putting, popping one off of that and putting another one on. But I don't think it's going to affect, I don't think that will affect the fish biting it. There's maybe certain lures that would affect the way it works and the action of it. But in dirtier water and like throughout the summer, I mean, maybe like wintertime trout fishing, finesse fishing, I feel like maybe it would hurt you. But other than that, I think it would probably be fine. It just depends on, and the nice thing about it, though, I guess this is the big part, is you don't wear through your leader every time you want to change. That's the big thing I wasn't even thinking about. And that's probably why the whole reason you brought it up, and I was just kind of rambling.
But that's what one of my pet peeves is, changing out leader. I'll go down to 6 inches and sit there, look at it, and wonder if fish aren't biting it because
I know.
I refuse to switch out leader. I also with the kayak, trying to tie knots a lot of time while staying still and current, whatever else. It does bring a different thing. I don't if I don't have to tie a knot and cut something off, I don't. And that's the reason I was trying it. I actually caught a red the first time I tried it the other day on it, and so I guess it maybe isn't an issue. I don't know. It was a little dirtier water though.
Yeah, I think even if it was crystal clear water, I don't think, unless the redfish are really spooky, would eat it. I really don't think it would bother many fish at all.
Yeah.
The only thing I can see is like maybe a real picky trout when it's really cold if it's crystal clear. Because sometimes I got to bump down to like 8 pound test, and up where you are, it's a little dirtier. But down around Wrightsville Beach and Figure 8 and South Topsail, sometimes those trout in the winter when it's really cold, it seems like your bite goes up a little bit if you go really light on the leader. But one thing that I've talked about a few times before, I don't know if you've heard me talking about this, but the Texas eye jig. Actually, are you familiar with the iStrike Texas eye jig?
Yes. So I have yet to buy one, but I know what they are.
I won't hold it against you yet.
Yeah.
But the way that it articulates, like the hook from the head, it makes a little clicking noise, a little tapping noise.
Okay.
And I did some underwater filming of it, and it was real. I mean, I could hear it from like 10 feet away. Like when my buddy would twitch it, I was in a pool, and I could hear it like popping as he twitched it. And I think that's another thing you could get from just a normal jig head if you had that little metal piece there as you go to pop it. It's probably making a little tapping noise. And there were some times where this summer where either my clients or myself made a bad cast on redfish in dirty water, twitched that thing. And, there's a chance that they felt it too. But there was a couple times where like 3 to 5 feet away, fish whipped around and dialed right in on that bait. And I think it was because of that noise. It's not too loud. It's not scaring the fish, but it just sounds like a little shrimp popping, underwater. And they can hear really, really well stuff that's underwater. Like I'll be poling and I'll be 30 feet away, 40 feet away from a fish, 50 feet away from a fish, and hit an oyster shell wrong with my bush pole, and they'll shoot off. And that's not even a loud, just like a little crunch that feels off, and they're gone. So being able to pick up on those little subtle noises like that, I think is huge. I think that's why spinner baits and chatter baits, not only the vibration, but some of the little clinks and clanks that probably pass underwater help out a lot too. So that's me rambling a lot about a simple question.
Not something that I think about, underwater sound. It's it's been proven, but not something that I usually think about.
Right.
It's how much finesse do you get in what you're trying to use or think about. So
yeah. I think that that's what I'm addicted to, is like just diving so deep into this stuff and trying to learn more and more and figure it out. But so since we're talking about tackle and bait and whatnot, let's talk about what other stuff you like to use. Let's start with redfish first and kind of go through each one of those, and then we'll come back to speckled trout.
Yeah. So everybody's favorite, top water. It's getting to be time. Everybody's getting excited. I just started throwing it a little bit more, and I've had a little bit of action. I don't know whether reds or not, but I do like the Skitterwalk and the one knocker spook. Those are the two go to. Whether I haven't seen differences in color or anything like that, or that I've just thrown it enough to know. But I do like those two for top water.
Yeah, for sure. Are you throwing the full size Skitterwalk or the little mini guy?
The full size.
The full size, sweet. Yeah, I've got a few of the little Skitterwalks, and I've thrown them, but not typically. It's like a lot of times in the spring, size plays a lot into it. Mm-hmm. In the summertime, they'll really eat anything, and a lot of times like a bigger bait, man, like redfish, not necessarily, but trout, like the bigger full size spooks and the one knockers are what I do a lot better on trout in the summer on. Everyone thinks speckled trout, small bait, but like I feel like honestly the bigger the topwater plug sometimes the better for speckled trout.
Yeah. So kind of getting into that, it's really my second, maybe third spring that I fish. So it's really it's wild how much of a difference it's made. The first one that I started fishing, I didn't even really know what tide. Like the tides don't matter nearly as much in South Texas. That there isn't nearly as much of an effect on the fish. Or there isn't just as much as a tidal effect in general. But you get here at the the first summer or spring, just trying to figure it out a little bit, and then the second one, really moving towards the Skitterwalk, and then finding the one knocker spook. So it's really just you look forward to almost a different season each year. That I get one more chance to try something new.
Yeah, definitely.
What it might look like. Yeah,
that's cool. And topwater is fun, man. It's just a fun way to fish. It really is. I remember before I caught many fish on topwater, it was a very intimidating bait, and it felt like, when it's really good, that's when I throw topwater. But now topwater kind of saves the day sometimes in the mornings, and it's a great search bait. It's not necessarily like, break out the topwater, the fish are chewing. Like that happens, But a lot of times it's like I'm in a new area, tide's kind of high, I'm gonna throw a topwater plug. Where a lot of other baits, I'd lose all confidence in those scenarios, and the topwater kind of shines in those times. And a lot of times, the cool thing too is you might not catch the fish, but they'll show themselves. You know, they might push up underneath the plug or blow it up and miss it, and you're like, all right, there's a fish hanging out there. And you come back in there an hour later on the dropping tide, and it's like bam, 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 3 fish on topwater real quick. So it's a great way to figure a place out. And so you said you're not super precise on color, like, and I'm with you on that. Like, it seems like a lot of times it doesn't always matter, and then other times it seems like it matters a lot. Like, I think when you've got a school of fish, sometimes, I don't know, we could talk, that's like a whole podcast in itself, but are there any colors that draw you to that, like draw you to them when they're on the shelf? That was a weird way to say that, but like maybe you're like, not like, oh, the fish eat this more, but are there any colors that you really prefer to throw topwater wise?
Yep. I use the I think it's the bone color in the one knocker, and then the frog and the skitterwalk. I don't know if it's kind of been passed down. I've seen pictures of them at whatever point. I couldn't tell you if there's any condition that makes it better or worse. I know watercolor probably plays a factor, but they're what I've got, and whether or not I want to spend another $8 to buy another one until that one goes away into a fish's mouth at some point down the line, that's probably what I'm using. So whether or not I'm missing a couple because of it, quite possible. But I usually I've got a bone and then the frog. I've got a couple of random ones. I just don't actually use them that much.
Yeah,
they've worked.
It's funny how like your confidence colors just are the ones you catch fish on, but it's because it's the ones you throw 95% of the time. It plays into mirror lures so well. There's like 1,500 types of mirror lure colors, and every guide and every angler has like, oh, that's the secret one, like that's the one you need. And they're all so different or so similar, however you want to look at it. And I think it just boils down to, not that they don't get hot, fish don't get hot on certain colors, but really just you're going to catch more fish on the one you throw the most. You're probably going to have a banner day on one of them, start throwing it a lot, and then all of a sudden that's the one you catch them a lot. For me, it's the rainbow trout mirror lure. But I guess we're going to talk about trout fishing in a second. So, all right, so top waters. What are you, if you're fishing subsurface? What is your setup most?
So I actually don't know. It's the Ice Strike regular jig head. I don't know what they name it, but that, and then either a Z-Man Paddler Z or a Gulp Twitch Tail or one of the other Gulp Ripple Mullets, I believe.
Yeah, the Ripple Mullets are sweet.
Yeah, so those are honestly the two that I really honestly throw that much. I'm still figuring them out, and I haven't feel like I've graduated to something else. So for the most part, that's what I'm throwing. If it's not top water, it's going to be in one of those Ice Strike jig heads with one of those three in varying colors. I will switch a little bit depending on watercolor, but one of those three combinations.
Right on. Here's a question that I get asked a lot, and I like to ask this question to other people as well, and that is, on the Ice Strike jig heads, is there a certain eye color that you prefer? For me, I always get like the pearl, I think it's called, like just the shiny kind of silver with the black eye, and like I've got topwater plugs over here that I painted drying. I've got pearl eyes on them. I just really like that natural pearl. But you hear some people swear by the yellow, by the red. Is there one that you pick up more than others?
I don't think I've bought anything besides the pearl. I didn't know what color it was either. Like the natural eye color looking one yet. I don't think I've bought anything besides of it.
It just goes it goes with every bait too, which I really like. You can put on any color bait and fish it well. So let's go through those soft plastics, the Z-Mans first off. Are there any Z-Man colors that you like to throw from the kayak?
I think it's the chicken. I don't know which one it is.
Is it fried chicken?
No. It's like that green and yellow chartreuse almost on the bottom, but
chicken on a chain? Might be chicken on a chain.
I believe so.
Okay,
I believe that.
Yeah. I don't know how I do that. I'm so bad about the two things I'm really bad about are like jig head weights or lure weights. Like I can never remember which is which, and then all the colors, man. There's so many colors. It's like trying to remember the huge box of like 64 crayons when you're a kid. And there's more than that,
I haven't figured out a way to tie the green and yellow or green and orange to a chicken, so it's the chicken.
Most chickens are just white or brown, it seems like. I guess roosters. Roosters can be, pretty colorful.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, it's a little bit of a stretch. I'm with you. Well, cool. All right, how about the gulps?
So the Twitch tail, it's a chartreuse and white. I believe that's all it says on there. So it's I don't know why time of year it hasn't really mattered with that one. It's done really well almost at any time. I fish that on a docks quite a bit if I'm fishing docks. So I've just done well with it. So I haven't really tried any of the other ones.
Cool. Cool.
And then the ripple mullets, I started out with the a straight chartreuse, but for some reason they're softer, and you can almost throw that off of you have bad cast one time, it'll almost rip it off.
Really?
So I went to the glow in the dark ones with the yellow tail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think they're called the glow in the dark. For some reason, they're made out of a different material because they glow, I think, and they are much tougher.
Oh, cool. That's a really good tip there.
If you pull some out and you buy those and feel them, they're made out of some sort of different material than the regular ripple mullets. So I started using those, and I've done well with them. It's almost like the pearl white color, and they've done really well. It seems like a lot of time in the spring and the summer I've done good with them.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. That's super cool to know. The gulps in general are just tough baits to keep on a hook. After a couple of fish, they work so well, and it's like a drug, man. You get addicted to those gulps, and you lose a lot of confidence when you don't have the gulp tied on. So is there a time or like a scenario in which you're like, okay, I need to be throwing the Z-Mans, or like I really need the scent, I want to focus on this gulp? Is there something that kind of dictates whether you're going to throw gulp or a Z-Man soft plastic?
Yeah, it's one of those perseverance things there again too. Like I don't know of a scenario. Like if I'm catching fish on it, I'll throw it. I'll continue throwing it. If I have one of them on there, I will switch them out. Like I have no problem doing that most of the time. I'm not super persistent about throwing one that I'm not catching fish with. So I just switch in between the three. And honestly, I did really well right at the beginning with the Z-Mans, right? Like really when I first started fishing. And they lasted forever, so I kept using them. And then last spring, the glow in the dark ripple mullets just killed it for me. I don't know why, and so I just used it, and it worked almost every time I went out.
Nice.
So it's just kind of whatever's going through. If it's working, I'm using it. I'm not really changing out based on what I'm fishing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's cool to kind of see the changes and that some colors can be better than others at times. And I think that's a good tip for anglers that are looking to maybe become more consistent on the water. It's like, don't go too crazy, but have a few lures you change through, know how to fish them well, know how they work, and kind of just switch through those couple lures every time you go fishing. If one's working, stick with it. If it's not, kind of change between the two, but 2 or 3, and that way you're not guessing too much. All right, these couple lures have caught fish for me. I'm going to stick with these. I'm not going to try anything too crazy. There's times on the water where I like to experiment more than others. Like if I'm getting bites, getting a few more, like especially trout fishing. It's kind of fun to experiment trout fishing and play around with colors and whatnot. But all right, is there any other baits that you like to throw for redfish? Are there any subsurface hard baits or anything like that? Or
I haven't honestly really messed with it. This might be the year, where I feel comfortable enough for not catching fish or whatever that I go out and try something else. I've thrown the Gold Spoon on attachment, a couple times and just didn't do it. It didn't do it for me. I don't know what it was, but I think I might try it again. There's a couple other ones I haven't really used subsurface, so for whatever reason. But suggestions are open.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you. I don't throw hard baits as often for redfish. It's more of a bycatch for me on subsurface hard baits, but the Gold Spoon and spinner baits and chatter baits, and I've even started throwing some buzz baits, and the buzz baits work pretty well. You need a very aggressive fish, it seems like, to eat a buzz bait. But the Gold Spoon, what I love about that is when the tide does get high and those fish are in that fringe grass and it's really hard to get anything to them, you can throw that Gold Spoon up into the grass. Literally, I'm throwing it up into the grass and just slowly reeling it until it falls right on the edge. Wherever there's enough water for the fish, and then I'm just kind of bringing it through there. And I've had it like sliding out of the water on a piece of grass, and I've had redfish come up and eat it. So it's the most weedless bait that I know of for covering the grass well. Like soft plastics are kind of annoying. Like even if they're not getting hooked up, they get tangled in the grass more. That Gold Spoon, that shape of the Johnson spoon, it just slides through the grass so well.
Yep. I think that's part of the reason I switched to the twitch tail at one point. The Gulp twitch tails is just for some reason they seem to catch less weeds, especially like right now when the grass is still here. For some reason they catch less. I don't know if it's just a thinner,
the thinner profile maybe. Yeah. That snot grass, man. I'm ready to see that gone.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah. It's time. Is it pretty dirty up by you right now with all that rain we had the past couple of days? No.
It's been dirty for a while.
It has been dirty
the past month, it hasn't really cleared up much yet. I don't get down your way very often, but you see the difference in the water. You really can,
Definitely.
especially back like the creeks up here are always dirty. You get out in some of the bays, if it's nice for a couple of days, it'll clear up. But
Yeah.
a lot of the water, a lot of the time, it could be a completely different type of fishing in the Wrightsville area of clear water fishing.
It can be. They can feel real different. They can feel very different. It's if you think about it though, it's like south Topsail to north Wrightsville Beach is dead center between the two rivers. So the two areas that are giving it the most freshwater influence, giving the waterway around us the most freshwater influence, that's kind of the dead center area. And so I think that's why it stays a lot cleaner. And due to the more fresh water on either end, you're having a lot more pluff mud bottom as opposed to sand bottom. And so that too, it'll get stirred up easier and become dirtier a little bit quicker. But those pluff mud bottoms, that changes the fishing up a lot of times, in my opinion, for the better. I like that kind of soft bottom. And so if I were given two options in the summertime of what kind of stuff I could fish, it would be, all that stuff up North Topsail to New River, and then the Cape Fear from downtown down to Bald Head. I just like the way the fish act in that mud and in those warmer temps. But well, cool. Let's talk about trout a little bit then.
Okay.
We're at 35 minutes, so yeah, we still got time, and we'll kind of go through that and then see if there's anything else to chat about for a minute, and then we'll close her off. But let's talk about topwater. Let's talk about that fish you told me about before we started recording this.
Yeah, so I think I texted Roger immediately after I lost it, and I said I thought the Loch Ness Monster came out of this oyster bank. But yeah, so I was throwing topwater for the first time in a while, and it was just barely windy enough. I don't like the calm days. I just, for some reason, just seeing it out there by itself doesn't look attractive to me. So just a little bit of a ripple on the wind, it seemed perfect out. Finally warmed up to like 70 so degrees, and he came up, missed it the first time, and I think I just like kind of looked at the water for a little bit and was in surprise, so I wasn't really expecting it. And then he came back and smacked it on the second one, and I held on to him for probably 5-10 seconds, and then I think I lost probably the biggest trout I've ever had on in my life. So I was pretty sad. I keep trying to go back and find him, but I think he's moved on to better waters.
Safer waters, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's, man, it really, we were talking about this before we started recording, but the big trout are really always the ones that get away, at least for me too. It's, I either don't have a net or they throw the hook, or like I hook them on a topwater plug like that, and trebles suck, and a topwater plug, man, you lose so many fish on them. Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's super crazy. What color topwater did he eat?
That was actually the one knocker.
The one knocker? Sweet.
Yep, that was the bone.
The bone one knocker? Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, great color. Great color. I think it's just so versatile. So the one thing you said about topwater there that I think is, a lot of people need to hear is a lot of people will get worked up thinking that, oh, I really only need to throw topwater when it's slicked out calm. And that's a great time for topwater. It works, but I think it honestly shines a little bit more when you've got a little bit of wind chop. And even in some pretty sloppy conditions, sometimes the topwater works well. You don't have as much presence in the water. Like the fish aren't going to notice that from as far away, but they still eat it really, really well. Like some of my best days in the summer, it's blowing 15, 18, and I'm on a protected shoreline that's got a good bit of wind chop and it's kind of stirred up, and the fish eat it really well. So I was excited to hear you say that, because it just brought that speaking point up. But so will you pick a topwater up when it's calm, like dead calm, and throw it as well? Yeah.
So I will 100%, and I'll never say no to it. But I also, if I can see movement, like mullet movement or something like that, it's a time for it. If it's dead calm, I'll still throw it. But really looking for fish at that point if it's flat.
Yeah.
At least some sort of sign of them versus just free casting. I don't know why I'll do it, but if there's a little bit of chop, then I'll still throw it out. I may, just because I know they might be there. Whether if there's no sort of movement, it's unlikely of some sort.
Yeah, for sure, especially in that shallow water.
Yep.
So top water for trout, and kind of sticking with the same colors. It sounds like, since you said those are the two that you liked. And I think, that's important, man. With top water, you can go through a lot of colors, but for the longest time, all I fished was like the golden mullet color, was skitterwalk, like that gold and black. And caught a lot of fish on it, but with trout, I feel like more than not. I'm sitting here looking at these new ones I painted up, and I think the playing around with the color can help, man. And people
No,
say
100% a believer in it. At what point or what level of understanding that we've got here, then that I don't know, but it definitely it's got to have some sort of play.
Yeah, and then at the same time though, I'm still like, all right, if they're gonna eat on top, they're gonna eat on top. It doesn't freaking matter. They're just gonna come up and eat it. All right, so if you're not throwing a top water for trout, what's your next move?
I do use some mirror lures. I'm not very good with them. The action, I'm probably way too impatient in general for a mirror lure. I will move it way too much. I recently got introduced into the I think it's the 52s.
Yeah.
And they talk about just leaving it down there for some giant fish to eat it. I like the idea of it, and I put it out there and fish with a little bit. I think it was a red with the actual speckled trout like spots on it that somebody at some point told me that's the one.
Yeah.
So I got it. And then I'll use the the 17 and then the heavier one. I can't remember which number that is, but I have finished the heavier. It's like a golden brown in dirtier water up here in the New River and done well with it. Nice. I think it just sinks down a little bit faster for me, and so a little bit more movement doesn't quite matter as much. So whichever one that one is, I've done relatively well with it.
Yeah. The patience on the mirror lure is a tough one to learn until you have like that day of every fifth twitch. If you're waiting till 5 seconds, they about rip the rod out of your hand, and then you're like, all right, that's all you need to do. But I mean, there's some guys, like you talk to some guys in Texas that work mirror lure sometimes, like topwater plugs, where it's like twitch, and just swimming it all the way back in. There's no right way to fish it. I don't think there's definitely productive ways to fish it, but I think we get our head so wrapped up in like twitch, pause for 5 seconds, and like that's all I do a lot of times when I pick up the mirror lure. So pushing the limits of what a mirror lure can do and how it can be fished is not necessarily a bad thing. All right, so mirror lure, if you're not throwing that, you switching over to soft plastics.
Yep, I will, and that's usually on a day when it seems to be the bite's really good, and if it's there, then it's there, and I'll fish soft plastics on it. I don't know if I've really found trout on soft plastics or searched for them on soft plastics much. Well, there's one, it's either the DOA or the one that looks like the DOA. Very similar. The green shrimp.
Oh yeah, DOA shrimp.
I will fish that until probably the day I die.
That's funny, man, because that bait to me, and I love it. I fish it too, but that one's way more intimidating than the mirror lure.
I don't know why. I will get the heavier one. I think they have a 3-inch and a 4-inch. I like to go with the 4-inch. I think just because it sinks a little bit faster. I will twitch it too fast if it's not sinking, and so I can actually feel that one too. If you get a light enough rod, you can actually feel the twitch and the bump from the shrimp on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like the green DOA or I don't think it's a Storm, but I can't remember which other brand it is, but it looks just like it.
Yeah. I forget what it is. There's so many little shrimp ones out there.
Yeah, but basically a DOA green shrimp. That's one that I really like, and I will search for them with that.
What's the retrieve you like with the DOA shrimp?
I will do a 2-bump, and then depending on water depth, pause for in between there. But
just kind of bouncing it back in like a jig head almost.
Yep.
Sweet.
And then it seems to be on the drop. I don't know what it is with their falling motion on those. But the drop seems to do it. So if you can keep in just enough line tension to get it there without it getting away, then
dude, I'm like just jonesing for that bite on a DOA shrimp as you're explaining that, like that just tight line fall, and then boom, they just suck it down. The way those shrimp fall, though, is really cool. Like they sink really nicely. If they're the only sucky thing about a DOA is they get jacked up on the hook so quick. Like one fish can do it, and when they're really hot, it doesn't matter. They'll just keep crushing it. But when I'm, working for a big fish or working a little bit more for my bites, and that's what they're eating, like you want your bait to look right. If they're just smashing everything, you don't worry about it as much. But if I'm getting bit every like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and really, having to work hard for those bites, I go through more of them than when they're just smashing them and I can leave a chunk of it on there. They're just eating it.
I've considered taking some quick dry super glue with me several times. I still haven't done it. I haven't put it on the boat, but I have considered just doing like a dab of the however fast it dries super glue just to keep those on there.
Man, I keep super glue on the boat, and I've never even thought about using it for that on that hook. That's genius. I always use it for like Z-Mans on jig heads and whatnot, but that would be huge. Use Z-Man or you super glue a Z-Man to a jig head, and you can catch 100 fish on it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty impressive what that stuff can do. But well, cool, man. Well, we've gone through the redfish and the trout and fishing from a kayak. But is there anything else that as an encouragement or one more tip or idea that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, that's I will say just going. So my thing that I like to do is to find a guide that knows what he's doing. If I don't know what I'm doing, somebody out there does. So just like with albacore fishing, I've never been. We went out 2 weeks ago, and if I want to go out on my own, if I find somebody that's got a boat or whatever, I could probably go out on my own now and find some fish. If I went before that, I probably would have had no idea. Look for what the birds are doing here. What the conditions need to be like or anything. How far out you need to go. As you can keep updated, but I will pay for a guide to find out how to fish an area. So go out with one, figure out what you're supposed to do, and then go out and do it yourself. Whether that's somewhere else or however that works, but get somebody to teach you. Find some friends that are into it. Join a Facebook page, Eastern Current, whatever else. I went offshore. I just met some people in a fishing store at one point and started going offshore with them in the kayak for a little bit. Just make some friends, be friendly with a guy that likes to do it, and go out there and just enjoy it.
Definitely. I think there's almost nothing better than a good network when it comes to fishing. Having guys that you can kind of keep in touch on the water and kind of figure out what's going on. Man, that helps me so much, and I think that helps. There's a lot of really fishing people out there, but I think a lot of people succeed a lot because of give and take through a network. And when you learn something and you get on something good, you can share it. And we have a couple people that you're all sharing your different strategies and your wins and your failures together. Like you're going to grow as an angler much quicker. So that's huge. That's super huge, man. Well, cool. Well, I'm going to close this out. Thanks so much for coming on, Wade. And I'm going to link Wade's social media. It's here if you're watching the video, but I'll link it into the show notes. So if you're in this area or you're not in this area and you want to talk to him about fishing or maybe fish together, hit him up, and he might not take you to his secret spots right off the bat, but maybe eventually if you're real nice.
We'll go out. I'm always down for a buddy.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Well, I'm going to close this out here. So thanks again, guys, for checking out this episode. Really enjoying these kayak episodes. I know I keep saying that, but I eventually, when the economy comes back in 15 years, I might just buy myself a kayak. So we will see y'all, though, in the next episode. Later.